listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft and people who play it. Today is July 6th, 2025, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Sunday?
Oh, Spencer, good morning to you. Yes, it is a fine Sunday, and this is an early start for us, but hey, I think our brains are mostly working at this point, so we should be good to talk some WoW, which is good. I just want to, at the top of the show, I just have to mention, and I hate that I have to do this yet again, but we have to talk about layoffs. It's a holiday week in the U.S., and Microsoft decided to celebrate by cutting like 9,000 employees from their Xbox division, which includes Blizzard now. And, you know, Blizzard didn't get hit as hard as some places did. Some studios got closed. Some games got canceled as a result of this. Microsoft is a company that makes, I don't know, billions, trillions of dollars in revenue. And they are obsessed seemingly with just cutting their payroll to the bone and funneling their money into these pie in the sky projects or something. This is the third round of mass layoffs they've done that have affected Xbox since the Activision Blizzard acquisition closed. It sucks, and it sucks for the people that actually make the cool stuff that we like. You know, the executives making the decisions about this stuff have no hand in what we play. It seems like on the WoW side, where they got hit was in social media and marketing. A bunch of the social team had already started leaving because they were not picking up their contracts or whatever. So, you know, I think the writing was kind of on the wall that like they weren't going to get renewed, or that if they got renewed that they were going in a different direction anyway. So if you've enjoyed, I mean, I think in the last 3-4 years, the social team has just been absolutely killing it. If you've enjoyed the stuff they post on social media and like the infographics and stuff that they make for social media, those people are all gone. It's all going to be outsourced to an agency, and maybe they'll still be useful, but it's not going to have that personality and connection to the community that we've become used to. I think Warcraft socials were some of the best I've seen for, you know, a video game or in this kind of industry. So it's really sad to see that go. And I think the community is going to be worse off for it for sure. I don't know, you know, that it's really going to affect the game that we play, but it sucks, and it sucks to see people that I like having to figure out what the next chapter is. You know, that's really bad. And the worst news coming out of Blizzard probably was Rumble going into maintenance mode and basically the whole team being let go. I think there's maybe a couple engineers left on the team just to keep the game up and running. The writing was on the wall for Rumble for months. It just really never found a foothold in the market, but it's a game that I love. I play it every day. I play it a lot, and it's super fun. It's a really fun take on, you know, real-time strategy and Warcraft in kind of a cute and silly way. And it's really sad that game never had a chance to flourish and to become, you know, something that could grow for years to come. So it's a real bummer to see that. I mean, Blizzard's been pretty good about their maintenance mode games like Heroes and StarCraft 2. They still exist. People still play them. They still get, you know, balance patches sometimes, and they still work and everything. You can log in and play them. So I'm hoping that Rumble will kind of at least settle in and be a thing that people can go back to and enjoy if they want to. But really sucks to see that happen as well. Yeah, and you know, right before the holiday weekend too. It seems so cruel, but hey, it was you know, a quarter end or whatever, so you got to make the books look good, I guess. It's just a terrible. This is not exclusive to the video game industry. All industries are sort of affected by this kind of mentality and this, you know, kind of merry-go-round. But the more this happens in games, like these studios go away, like they're not coming back. There aren't new investors looking to start up video game studios. It just ends up being talent brain drain. These people are going to leave the industry and never come back. They're just going to go do something else. And, you know, the industry is going to be worse off for it, and the games that we play are going to be worse off for it. So it stinks. And part of it is I'm just mad at myself because I was naively thinking that like Microsoft would be a good corporate steward for Blizzard. And I think it's safe to say already that they're not. They've cut so much staff just in the brief time that they've owned them. And they've done worse to other studios in that time as well. It's just, I guess this is a market correction, because in 2020, when the pandemic really broke out worldwide, video games were something that a lot of people turned to, and they were like printing money off of existing games. And, the market kind of turned once the world opened back up again. And I guess, the fortunes of the industry changed, and now that becomes the workers' fault, apparently. So it just, it sucks. There's really nothing, there's no silver lining here. There's no way I can be positive about it. And it's sort of, man, what a damper on what's usually like a fun time in WoW in the summer, with Midsummer Fire Fest, with the Warcraft 3 anniversary and everything. All that stuff just feels gross this year because of all this. So really sorry to everybody that's been affected, and good luck in the future. And Microsoft, please stop laying off your game developers. We want to buy and enjoy your games. So make good ones and retain good talent. Thanks.
Yeah, man, layoffs are never an easy thing to talk about. They're always a rough, really hard thing on thinking about those who are affected. The economics of it are not fun, mainly because, as you described, during the pandemic, a lot of money and a lot of investors who had no real previous experience investing inside video game industry dumped money into video game industry because it was the thing that was exploding. If during the pandemic, for whatever reason, tennis was exploding, that's where their money would have gone. It's just because video games were exploding, that's where their money went. And what it meant was, when video games were no longer the thing, when the pandemic started to end and the market started to plateau more, it's still climbing. Like, really, it's still going up. It's just not going up as extreme as it was. Those people went, hey, this other thing's going up more extreme than what video games currently are. We're going to move all of our money. And when all that money then moves, you have businesses who go, oh, well, we still need the people who are sticking around as our stockholders to be happy. So we still need to show revenues that are at least somewhat similar to whatever that steep angle was that we were increasing before. So we're going to do the thing that is the fastest and easiest way to show money increase, and that's laying people off. And so that's where a lot of this starts to come from. And you can call it a rebalance, you can call it whatever you like. When it comes down to it, these companies are still earning record profits and still earning more money than they earned last year, but they're doing it while at the same time laying people off. And so it's that thing of, where's the breaking point? Where's that tipping point that's going to happen in this industry, where they eventually hit a point where they literally lay off so many people that they can't lay off more people without, essentially closing down a lot of the gaming studios that are out there. And that's what we're starting to see now, is we're starting to see them just close gaming studios and go, hey, you know what, we've had you working on this game for the last 5, 6, 7 years, but we're just going to not release it, and we don't need you anymore. Goodbye, because it's better to have you off the books than to have you on the books continuing to work for us as far as our numbers go. And that is the sad reality that we're starting to hit now. So I don't know where this leads down the line. I do know that the industry as a whole has been essentially suffering for the last 3 years in a pretty big way, and that there's going to be, unfortunately, more rough times ahead until finally something shifts, like, as far as the industry goes. Like, I'm with you, Jason. I want to see them retain talent. I think it's really sad to see some of the great, not just creative minds behind the games that we like, but also the support teams behind the games that we like, that really make those games enjoyable, going away. It's very strange to see games that win Game of the Year or really big awards because so many people enjoyed those games, having full teams laid off after those games have been released is a very weird thing to see, but that's the reality we're currently in. It's just such an unstable industry. So I hope things change, and I hope that, whether that comes from unionizing or other places, I hope that things shift and get better for all the folks who work in those industries that we love. So, hopefully that does. And until then, as Jason said, my sympathies to those who are affected. It's really unfortunate, and I wish you the best with a soft landing wherever you end up at. And I hope it's still gaming, and I hope it's still something you're passionate about, is really what it comes down to, so we'll have to see. But we'll talk a little bit about World of Warcraft now. We'll get into our regular show, moving on from that tragic news. Okay. So this past week in World of Warcraft was, I mean, the biggest thing for me, because I haven't raided yet. I raid tonight and I raid tomorrow. I guess I can talk about raid last week. Raid last week was fine. We went in, did a full clear, which was great. We did 5 bosses on Sunday and then the other 3 on Monday. Sprocket remains a boss that sort of stands out as a bit rough for people to consistently execute, because it's the one where a single mistake tends to cause a big chain reaction, and that's a big problem. And even like, ooh, you're just a little bit slow soaking a mine, that's then a spiral effect that can cause a wipe in a lot of those situations. So we did clear it. It just was one of those cases where that's now 2 weeks in a row where we struggle with Sprocket. So the team's trying to get themselves together and clean that up, because we're close to a one night clear if we can clean up. We had some trouble with Gallywix last week too, so we can clean up Galley and clean up Sprocket. That'd be good. Galley I almost expected to a certain degree when you have newer people in, because it's a boss that, you know, it's a big enough dance that it takes people a little while to get used to. We are getting to the point where like we can have 3 or 4 deaths and it's not like, oh man, we're, you know, as long as it happens late enough into the fight where we're not dealing with soak mechanics in a really big way. Like, yes, there are the, you know, frontal soaks that have to happen in the last phase of that fight on Mythic, but they aren't like, we can kind of fudge it to make it work with the fewer number of people because we're getting powerful enough. The early ones with mines, like you cannot lose people. You need to have everyone there for all the mine soaks that have to take place. Otherwise, you just end up with a wipe, because it's an insta wipe if you don't have 3 people in each of those circles. So you get a lot of wipes to that. Once people have learned that dance, you're consistently getting to the last phase. Then you can see some people sort of fall off, and we can compensate on the fly, which is nice. So it's that one we had a little bit of trouble with this week too. But if we can clean up that fight, if we can clean up Galley and Sprocket, I feel like we're getting towards that one night clear, which will feel really good. So we'll see how tonight goes. Hopefully it's nice and smooth, and then hopefully we're not even raiding tomorrow, because we're just, you know, able to do Mythic Plus or whatever else we want to do because it's all cleared out. So that would be really nice. Outside of that, it's been a lot of sitting outside of Dornogal. It's parking my character outside of Dornogal so I can log in and kill a goblin every hour. It's been a lot of like, you know, I basically am like, I have other things that I'm working on or things I need to pay attention to, whatever it is. And I just sort of have a little alarm that reminds me as we're like 2 minutes away from the hour. So I can log into my character and just go park, wait till the, you know, portal spawns, throw anything into the portal I need to throw into the portal to boost the goblin up. And then, you know, 1 to 3 goblins spawn based off of what we've thrown into the portal, and we beat them up and you get some shards, and, you know, that's been great. And I did that for a couple of days. So I have 3 armor sets, now, which is great. So that was something to cross off the list, which is nice. I can continue working towards the other ones. I know people who've gotten all of them. I know people who've been doing massive mount farming, because obviously the increased drop rates have been big. I've seen a lot of like really rare mounts, people getting multiples of the really rare mounts off different, you know, locations that they're doing for folks who are farming those. So congratulations to those. And it's been a really exciting week. And wow, it's definitely one where I'm like, I could be spending a lot more time on World of Warcraft than I currently am. I could be spending a lot more time on Warcraft than I really am. Like it's a good one. So I'm hoping everyone's really enjoying it and getting the stuff they want to get, because that's definitely high on the list. The other thing I haven't done this week that I still want to do before raid, so I'll do that this afternoon, is get the extra 3 eye levels on my belt. For those who have been paying attention, the belt that you get from doing delves, you can upgrade it additional item levels, and this is one of the weeks where you can actually do that up to 697. Is that where? I think that's where it's going now. Yeah, 697. So that's where that'll go up to. So I need to get those 3 eye levels before raid.
Yeah, man, you're holding the team back. Come on.
Yeah.
You get there's 3 item levels on your belt. That's way higher item level than anything else in the game.
Yes, and we have enough people who are role swapping who are now wearing substantially lower gear. So yes, I'm totally the one holding things back.
You gotta make sure you get that ready to go. Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, man, the summer schedule for our team is starting to get really weird. This week was extremely truncated because of the holiday week and everything. We only ended up playing one night. I didn't even do stuff Wednesday night. So Tuesday we raided. Raid was lightly attended. I mean, I would say, I don't know. We had about, I don't know how many we had, 15, 16, 17, something like that. I guess some other people would say, what are you complaining about? You still have that many people to raid with, but which is, I mean, there's something to be said for that for sure. But Mythic is just pretty much totally off the table lately, which is a bummer. Because it's fun to at least kill what you can kill, right? Even if we're not progging anymore, I like going in and reclearing, but it was just straight up blast heroic. We had a bunch of alts in, and we were just doing silly stuff. I mean, most of heroic is super easy at this point, and as long as your tune doesn't get one shot, and plus you get the 18% zone buff now, which is massive. So that was the Tuesday. Probably took about an hour and 15 to clear out heroic. Ended up doing 4 keys afterwards, but then that was it for the week. I if anybody hits me up and is like, hey, let's do some keys, I would do some tonight or tomorrow just to fill out vault. But the warrior needs one piece of myth gear to be fully myth geared, and it's a ring, and it's like rings are awesome, but only if their stats are good. So it's kind of hard to, I guess, care right now about just filling up vault week in, week out for the warrior. Just kind of is what it is. I did get my belt upgrade right away, but that was the only delve I did on the warrior. And then I hopped in on the monk, did the monk belt upgrade, and I still would like a hero neck on the monk for reasons that I can't explain. The monk is in full hero gear except neck, and everything I just said about the warrior and the ring applies to the monk. But I don't know. It feels like it's a different play style, right? So it's something different to do. I think that's why it's like I don't mind doing it on the monk, and also I've gotten into this rhythm of every day I do whatever the 2 overcharged delves are, and I do that 4 days out of the week, and then my vault's done. I think the overcharges are fun. They don't really mix up the play a lot, but with all the bonuses and stuff, you do so much damage, and they're so fast, and you stand in the traps, and then you get the damage bonus from that, and you just start blasting stuff. So, it's kind of fun. So I've been doing that. And then, other than that, I talked last week about what I've been calling recreational WoW. I did a lot of recreational WoW this week. I finished up Heroic Vision, so I went and got the stuff for the Panther mount, and that meant that I had enough. Because you got to do, I don't know, what you can get 4 of the crystals at a time, and you need 20 of the crystals to get the mount crafted. So, you got to do at least like 5 runs or whatever with at least 1 mask. So from all that, I had plenty of mementos left over. So I bought the rest of the cloth mog. The appearance vendor is totally bought out for me now, which is nice. And also I have leftover mementos. So if I play another tune and I need a helm enchant, I got it in the bank. I think, I did that at the beginning of the week because I needed to wait for Stormwind to roll around. And then it was like, all right, let's get Time Walking done. Burning Crusade this week. Smooth runs. I did have one experience in a Shattered Halls where I guess I was taking a little bit too long between 3rd and 4th boss, and this warlock got a little antsy, so he just ran all the way ahead of me to the last boss. And he got stunned by like every rogue. There's all those stealth rogues in that hallway. He kept getting stunned, and he just pulled all the stuff. He ran straight onto the boss, and I was just like, "Hey, you pull it, you tank it, buddy." So the healer let him die, and he was like typing in /say tank while the boss is punching him to death, and the healer let him die, which I was pleased with. And then we killed the boss, and I left. So, don't be a jerk. If your tank is not moving forward, it's probably because they're waiting for something to come off cooldown, or they just need a second to collect themselves before they load up their next round of pulls. So if you run into a boss and die, that's your fault, not the tank's fault. That's my little PSA. Treasure goblins, like you mentioned, been doing a ton of that actually, just because it's kind of an idle activity, like you sort of mentioned. I got 5 Mog sets done for my top 5 tanks, so I'm working my way through that. The loop that I like to do is go to Dornegal and do the one at the top of the hour, so at like 12 o'clock or whatever, right? And then that takes about 6-7 minutes usually for the thing to spawn in and for the goblins to die. Then go to Undermine. And in Undermine, at 15 past the hour every hour, that's when the portal storms start. And it's usually like 4 to 5 portals back to back. And sometimes there's extra ones with the with the rares. Some of the rares, sometimes they spawn in with a buff that will spawn a goblin portal when they die. So you can take advantage of that. So usually that's like a good half hour, 35 minutes of doing like a goblin loop that results in a whole lot of Hellcaller chests. And they also spawn in raid too sometimes when you kill a raid boss. Sometimes they'll spawn, and so you can get another extra couple there. And they did a nice hot fix earlier this week. It wasn't documented, but I got the new backpack and the new mount like right away. and then I got my 10 chests and I got all my shards, and then I was starting to open chests that had nothing in them at all, which was kind of frustrating, but sometimes I'd still get 5 shards out of a chest. But I kept doing it, and then eventually, I think it was like Wednesday, I noticed or something that I would at least get 1 shard in every chest. So that's nice. That it feels really bad to open a chest and not get anything. 1 shard is not a lot when you need 40 shards for a set, but you get three chests at a time, so it balances out okay. I want to get all 13 sets. There's nothing else to do with the shards, so all you need is there's 13 of those sets to buy for 40 shards. So I'm probably done with it until reset, but I feel pretty good about my ability to get these all collected before the end of the event at the end of the month. So it's cool. If you're looking to knock out a bunch, I definitely recommend Dornagal straight to Undermine. Do that loop, and then do that as much as you can stand, I guess, in any one session or at any one time, and then you'll get as many shards as you really can carry, I think, at that point. So I think that's the best there.
Good to know. I mean, I definitely was not doing that route. I was just doing the Dornagal stuff, so it's good to know that like hopping down into Undermine directly after is the route to do. So I will add that to my repertoire.
It's a bit more active, right? Because the portals spawn all over the place in Undermine, so you have to, you can park in Dornagal and do that at the top of the hour. But then when you head to Undermine, then it's like, okay, where's the next one? Okay, then you got to get over there before it goes, and then the goblins run everywhere, right? And then you got to find where the next one is and get to that. So it's you got to be kind of paying a little bit more attention. It's less of an idle activity than the Dornagal farm. But one thing I like to do too is, what is it? Shift M that puts the map overlay on your screen.
Yeah.
That's actually really nice in Undermine, because Undermine's a real busy map, and the Diablo portal icon stands out really well on that little overlay. So that helps while that's going on. I would recommend people check that out too. Man, other stuff, dude. I was so busy. I did so much stuff in the game this week. Maybe because I wasn't doing as much raid and dungeon stuff. I don't know, but I did some lore walking. I did the Ethereal chapter, which was really cool. I really enjoyed that story, and I think it's a nice. Now that we know where we're going in Ghosts of Koresh, I thought like, okay, well, this is pretty relevant to the story, so I want to check this out. And I had never done this Netherstorm quest, I don't think. So I had done the newer stuff, but by the time I was leveling up in Burning Crusade, like Netherstorm was just not on the menu, right? So it was cool to go and do that. And I think the way the tech works is really neat. It really just kind of beelines you straight to the different plot points, and there's not a lot of downtime. You're not really traveling around like Lore Walker Cho just moves you and you go do the next part of the quest. So yeah, I like that. I think there's a lot of potential for that system for sure. And the toy reward that transforms you into an ethereal that you get for doing that rules. So that's really cool. I did a little bit of the old raids, but I didn't get any mounts. I didn't do much. I'm not sitting there like pounding lockouts, but I was like, all right, let's go through a couple that have stuff that I know I don't have. It is cool how much stuff drops. Like it's a transmog bonanza, dude. Like you get so much loot off of these bosses, which actually isn't terrible for gold either. So that's kind of a cool side effect. I'll probably do some more of that here and there, but anybody who listens to the show regularly knows I'm no huge mount collector. It's just not my lane. So I'll get in and do stuff because it's cool if you just high roll something, but I don't have a spreadsheet. I'll put it that way, right? The other thing I did, I hopped into MOP Classic because the pre-patch came out on Tuesday. And so if you play through the Wandering Isle starter experience, you get a really sweet mount for retail that's like a Jade Celestial Cloud Serpent. Really awesome looking mount. And I mean, I love MOP. I think Wandering Isle is a great starter area anyway. I haven't done it in, I don't know, 12, 13 years probably. So that was really fun to go back and do, and it was fine on the classic server that I was playing on. It wasn't like there wasn't an overwhelming amount of traffic. I was able to get all the quests done without any kind of frustration. So that was great, and the mount looks awesome. And that's maybe just like the permanent mount for my Pandaren monk at this point. So that was cool. Highly recommend that. You have until the end of the month to do that. So I definitely recommend it. You don't have to do anything special. Just log into MOP Classic and start a Pandaren character and play through the starting zone as such as it is. Mm-hmm. The other thing, I'll tell you what, I did some Dashly Duos this week. even though all the stuff you could get was in the game last week, like the mount, all the toys and everything. The achievements, there's like week-to-week achievements, and they're just bugged. And I had an issue with it last week. I think I talked about it on the show. Like, I couldn't get credit for killing Foe Reaver, which meant I couldn't get the 8 boss achievement, which meant I couldn't get the staff Mog unlocked. Eventually, I fought through that. I did it a couple times, and then it worked. I had the same issue this week with like the high score achievement and killing the 10 bosses or whatever, but those achievements don't grant you anything. So I was like, you know what? I'm just done with this. This isn't really a fun mode to me. And the rewards have now fallen off a cliff. Like, these achievements they mean nothing to me. They don't unlock anything cool. There's no real prestige with this, in my opinion. So I guess I'm just done with it. If I had I at least earned the achievements for this week, I'd be like, all right, let me hop in the last week or whatever, and get the last of the achievements done for that. But like, I don't feel compelled to keep doing this thing I don't like because these achievements are bugged. Like, there's sort of a negative feedback loop there. So Dastardly Duos, I think the white turtle mount is cool, but overall pretty big miss for me, unfortunately. But I mean, like I just kind of got into, man, there's a lot of stuff to do, and there's more stuff coming up pretty soon too. So I'm in kind of a weird headspace because like, from the raid leader side, I would really love it if my raids were attended better, and if I was able to at least clear, mythic reclears and keep the team vibrant and keep everybody playing. But it's also summertime, and we've been at this content since March. And, for me as a player, it's like, well, I don't have much of an emotional stake in this stuff right now anyway. So maybe just taking a deep breath and waiting for Ghost of Koresh is just what everybody needs, right? And I think that's fine, and it's natural, and I think it's important to recognize that. And what I'm trying to do is not put pressure on myself that doesn't exist from anywhere else to do something with the raid team or with my own, end game WoW schedule, right? Like, it's tough for me to shift that gear down sometimes, to be honest. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. It's like, it's okay if the vault isn't filled. It's okay if we didn't kill those mythic bosses this week. Like,
yeah,
did everybody who showed up, did we have a nice time? Cool. We'll see you next week or whatever. And it's a hard transition to make, but that's where I'm at right now.
It's interesting. I have a much more natural downshift, because when we finished Mythic Prog, there's like an immediate downshift for me. Like, we take a week off, we sort of prep for farm, and are sort of shift into a farm mentality to a certain degree, which does create some problems because it's bosses we haven't seen in a while. So there's a bit of reprog that ends up happening because of people downshifting like that. But it's such a natural point for me to go, okay, this is when I take a little bit of a step back from this season. This is when I relax a little bit more and be a little bit less engaged in like min-maxing, optimizing everything I possibly can, right? And so you sort of had that, like, I didn't have my my belt at all for the first week the belt was out, because I just didn't do it. And it's not like it took long. It took like an hour and a half to get the belt and upgrade it once and that kind of stuff. And the next week when I was doing it, I was like, it's okay. We've cleared this content in the gear that I'm currently in. It's okay. We could just take an extra week of not having to engage in some of these new systems that are coming in when it was happening. And you just sort of like have that natural downshift. So, I'm at the point now where I'm like, okay, I still want to be sure that I'm performing well enough in raid that like I'm not holding the team back or creating issues for the team. And I do genuinely enjoy some of the content loops they have in the game, so I'm still participating in those, which I think is really nice. I have yet to do a Dastardly Duos. I have not touched the system at all. I've stood and I'm doing goblin stuff, so I'm standing next to the Dastardly Duos area, being like, I'll try that at some point. I still haven't done it. And it's not that like I don't think the rewards are good, or I don't think that the feature has potential or whatever it was. It came on my radar at such a bad point in our prog period, and I immediately went into that downshift, and it was just like, all right, it's going to be there for a bit. I don't feel like it's going away imminently, so I should probably just, hop into it when I can hop into it, kind of thing, right? And so I think that's kind of where my mentality is with that particular system that they've added to the game. Right now, it's, hey, I want to get all the goblin stuff during the limited time event that I'm doing limited time event stuff. I haven't gotten them out yet. Just haven't had the RNG for the drop yet, but I've gotten the backpack and some other stuff. So like, that's cool. So I just need to keep doing it, and I got no problem doing that. So, I think that it's WoW's in a place right now where you participate on the level that you're wanting to participate at the moment. And when season 3 kicks around, there's gonna be a lot more pertinent stuff to do that you don't want to fall behind on, I guess, is where my mind is kind of at. So I'm okay with falling a little bit behind on some of the, the secondary things like Dastardly Duos. On my list of things to do in WoW, it's farther down that list of how I want to dedicate my time in the week to week. So yeah, I think you're doing all right. I think that downshift might be a little hard for you at the moment to not fill your vault. Like I have not done a Mythic Plus dungeon in a week and a half. Like, it's one of those things where I'm like, it's okay.
How could you?
It's okay, right? It's fine.
There could be upgrades in there.
I mean, there's still trinkets. Like, I don't have a Mythic Priory trinket, and I don't have a Mythic Dark Flame Cleft candle yet. Those are both 2 things. I do still have 2, dinars I can spend. So I'm waiting to see what I get at a raid, because if I happen to get the stuff that I need at a raid, which so far is progressively happening, I got my healing trinket off of Sprocket this past week. So that's taken care of. That no longer is a dinar option. That drops off. So like there's things that are slowly getting there as far as that goes, but we'll have to wait and see what drops happen during farm, and if it ends up in a position where I'm able to use 2 dinars to buy 2 Mythic Plus Mythic trinkets, that's great. That's that'd be the ideal situation. So we'll see what happens with that. But until then, it is what it is. All right, let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week in World of Warcraft is the Daily Quest bonus event that's going on, the World Quest bonus event that's going on. And that means that there's a quest to pick up for 10 World Quests to be completed. That gets you 2,500 rep to the major faction of your choice. And the Sign of the Emissary buff is up, increasing reputation gains from World Quests completed by 50%. And this is World Quests anywhere, which means if you want to go back to Legion and farm Legion reputations to get Legion mounts out of Legion Paragon bags, you can do that. That's a thing. You'll get the 50% bonus. So keep that in mind. If you're in the hey, I'm doing loops trying to get mounts from all these old areas, maybe you add this to part of those loops for this week of you're doing some world quests and some of the older content, so that you're trying to get some additional rewards from Paragon bags and things like that were also on your collections list. So keep that in mind. Yeah,
also, any Legion stuff you collect now is less bronze you're going to need for Legion remakes this winter.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Which, man, that is undoubtedly true, but I hate thinking about it. That is not good for my brain. So
no, it's not.
It is true though. If Legion remakes works anything like MOP remakes worked, then there will be a ton of MOG to collect from across the whole expansion. But then there's also stuff you can get. If you have it, it's the same stuff. So. Something to keep in mind while this collection thing is going on, and while we're getting the extra rep and all that, because there's stuff locked behind rep, and then there's the random mount drops out of the bags and all that. So, yeah. And hey, it's also good for current content too, because I've done more Undermined than most, I would say. I have 3 of the 4 main cartels at Exalted. I'm working on the last one. Like I said, the Dark Fuse one, I think I said last week, the grind is just way too much. I'm not going to be doing that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this kicking in. This is usually this is such a nothing event, usually late in a season, but because of the way the Goblin cartels work, it's hey, I still have bars I want to fill up. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. I'll definitely take advantage of that this week.
Yeah. The Turbulent Timeways event is continuing on. We're moving into Warlords of Draenor time walking. So if you have not done your time walking for this week, be sure you get that in to get your buff. This was the last week that you could start doing it before you end up in, the position where you're just not going to be able to get the mount. So be sure you're getting that in where you can. I still need to log on to my alt, who has the buff already, and just run 1, because that is the trick for those who are unaware. How the Turbulent Timeways work is you run 4 time walking dungeons. The 4th one you run gives you the sort of penultimate buff that you can get, or the ultimate buff, I guess, that you can get of the entire, event. And that counts as 1 towards the achievement. And if every time you refresh that buff on subsequent weeks, it adds an additional 1 to that achievement, and you need to get 5. So you just need to run one time walking dungeon as long as you have that buff to refresh it. So I use an alt that I can log out on where the buff doesn't go away, and then I can, just log in and do 1 Mythic Plus, which feels really good. Not Mythic Plus, 1 time walking and feel really good. It was brought to my attention this past week that this was actually bugged in the first week, and some people were able to keep refreshing the buff in the first week and actually just complete the entire achievement and be done. I believe that's all been resolved and fixed, but yeah, if you happen to get your mount in the first week, congratulations, you've beaten the system and you were, faster than Blizzard could hotfix. So that's the thing. But yes, for the rest of us, that's the situation you're looking at. It is Warlords of Draenor or Time Walking, which means that we have the Sign of the Iron buff up this week, increasing Warlords of Draenor reputation gains from quests and combat by 50%. So this might stack with world quests. I'm just putting that out there to folks. If you're doing world quests and Warlords of Draenor, there is a chance that you might get double reputation. So just keep that in mind. Now, Jason, you're frowning. You're frowning.
There are no world quests in Warlords of Draenor.
I was trying to remember if there were daily quests or world quests. I was like, my brain's was Legion the beginning of the world quest?
Legion was the genesis.
It was the genesis of them. Oh man, my brain was like, came in. I literally was picturing. This is what my brain was doing. I was picturing the maps of all the different zones, and I was trying to picture if there were blue dots on those maps, and I was like, I think there was something. But no, it was probably
there's some daily quests and stuff. But
yeah.
The thing with Warlords was there was so little to do in the outdoor world that it was like maddening. It was a huge overcorrection from Mists of Pandaria, which had too many daily quests by most players' estimation. Warlords of Draenor had basically nothing, but there was stuff you could pick up in your garrison. There was stuff you could do for Hexa shards. You could do those, and that would give you bonus rep if you want. But so if you don't have any Warlords reps done, it's good. But also, Warlords was the last expansion without Paragon bags. Paragon bags are, of course, a shell of their former selves, as we complain about on the show all the time. But like Legion, BFA, even Shadowlands had some stuff, that would come out of the Paragon bag. So it's like there's a reason to go back and revisit them on that level. Warlords would be pretty much just if you didn't finish a rep, or if you're trying to hit Exalted with something. But there's not the volume of outdoor stuff to do as some of the other expansions. So that might be tricky too.
Yeah, man, it was one of those things where I have to go back. So yeah, so next week would have been the overlap week because Legion would have the world quests, and then of course Battle for Azeroth Time Walking on the week after that would also have world quests. So man, that's too bad. All right, well, if it is what it is, you've missed out on some reputation because you thought that there was world quests, I apologize. Because there's no world quests in Warlords of Draenor. That was a Legion brainchild that took place that sucked people into doing tons and tons of outdoor content and made us do a lot of PvP towers, which was a lot of fun. It was also Choose One week. That means this week we are going to find out as to what we are picking from, whether it's the Theater Troupe, Severed Threads, Awakening the Machine, Dungeons, Snuffling, World Quests, World Bosses, Delves, or the Undermine Explorer. One of those things is going to be the choice that you'll have for this week. It's going to be basically 4 of those things you get to pick from, and you're going to pick one of them, and that'll be your actual weekly event that you do this week. Now, keep in mind the other ones are still going, so if you're someone who's already accepted Titan Disc Fragments, or you're on the Delves weekly from last week, or anything like that, you can still complete those. They don't go away. It's a 3-week rotation, so you have obviously until next week to complete the Titan Disc Fragments, which is what was going to be replaced as we sort of move through this rotation, since we had Delves weekly last week with Bran. So keep that in mind, that you'll want to get your Titan Disc Fragment stuff wrapped up this week, which shouldn't be too hard if you're doing some Delves, which you might be doing to get your belt upgrade. So just keep that in mind. Okay. PvP Brawl. Arathi Blizzard is going on. This is Arathi Basin, but it's winter, which means that the lake is frozen and the visibility is bad. You have a snowstorm taking place. You cannot see from Lumber Mill down to Blacksmith. You can travel across all of the frozen ice between each of the capture points to be able to have a faster and newer routes to get around the map. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be doing this brawl. Overall, this is one of the more fun brawls when it comes to like playing with weather effects, which I wish they'd do more of in the game. But it's not something crazy special. Like this is not the best version of Arathi Basin. We all know Comp Stomp is the best version of Arathi Basin. So keep that in mind. And well, if this is something you want to hop into this week, then you absolutely can.
Yeah, it's it's fine. It's always funny when Arathi Blizzard rolls around in the summer in the northern hemisphere, like we have right here. But yeah, this is one of the first brawls that we got to play, maybe the first one. And it's it mixes it up a bit, but this is definitely not something that I see in the calendar and I go, oh, I'm doing brawls this week. Like I almost never PvP anyway, but this isn't one of the ones that really grabs me. I like the brawl rotation, but man, it feels like it needs to be freshened up. It's been kind of the same thing for expansions upon expansions now. So this is one, like if they were like, hey, we got some new brawls coming, but we're saying goodbye to some old ones because we want to keep the pool at 12, I wouldn't miss this one a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Godfather is the world boss up in Undermine. If you want to knock him out for some 642 Warbound loot, you only get loot on your first kill of the week on your account, so just keep that in mind. But that Warbound piece is nice to send off to your alts if that's something you want to get. In Mythic Plus world, it is a Voidbound week for those of you who are doing Keystones. You can get yourself this affix, which is any mob that gets buffed takes reduced damage from this buff. And the buff is killing Void Emissaries gives players a buff that gives them versatility and a 30% cooldown reduction for 30 seconds. These Voidbound Emissaries are mobs that spawn that have a large shield on them and need to be DPS down to beat up this mob and defeat it so that you can actually get the buff out of what's going on with it. It's probably one of my favorite buffs. Like versatility is massive, cooldown reduction is massive. It's a 30-second buff. The ad spawns every minute, which means you're only going 30 seconds without having this buff. So it's up for the majority of the dungeon. It's one thing that spawns at this point, this late in the season. It dies pretty quick. If you have an evoker or a monk, an evoker does increase damage to shields. A monk can touch of death this thing when it actually spawns. So which means it does at least 60 to 70% of its health. At this point, your health pool is so large, it might be possible for like a monk tank to one-shot this thing. I don't know. That might be a thing now because touch of death is all based off your health pool. So I don't know. Maybe that could be happening too. So it's a really nice, easy to handle buff for the ones that are out there. Killing one more thing isn't an extreme challenge in these situations. It's just getting your group to actually focus on it. That's the hardest part of this whole thing is, hey, the Voidbound Emissary spawn. Switch to the Voidbound Emissary and defeat it so that we can get the big buff and just keep rolling. So just, as long as groups are doing that, I think you'll be doing pretty well. There's not a lot of bosses where this thing spawning is ultra punishing. There used to be with how this mob used to work, but they've since nerfed it and changed it, so that's made it a lot easier. I don't really think of anything in this current pool where I'm like, oh no, this is terrible that this thing has spawned. Maybe last boss of Rookery because people are split up, so it's harder to like switch that focus target. But really, that's only going to be a big problem for your group, I think, during the empowered phase when everyone wants to be DPSing the boss anyways. To have an ad that you need to switch to focus on spawn during a DPS phase is a kind of a pain to deal with. But outside of that, this is a pretty good affix, I think, well-rounded. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's better now because in season 1, it would like immediately start amping up a shield on everything around it. It doesn't do that anymore. It's just if you let it complete its cast, then, it converts to like a shield on based on how much health it had left. So it's a lot friendlier because sometimes you have those moments where, yes, this is a priority and you need to kill this thing, but other stuff needs to be taking damage too. So the lack of shielding everything immediately is really nice. I haven't played. This is not some kind of flex. It's just the reality of the situation. I haven't played a Keystone with an affix in like months, so I don't really know how this feels anymore. I got to think with all the power that we've had come in through the belt and the helm enchant and just the item level inflation and all that. If you are doing sub 12s, like this thing must die pretty fast if you pay any kind of attention to it, right? So just make sure you kill it. And Rookery always ends up being sort of that outlier, right? Because the last boss is so weird the way you have to position around it. the thing does have like an aggro table, so generally it will spawn near and then snap to your tank. But sometimes if it spawns and then your tank has to move away, it can end up kind of being in no man's land for a while until somebody can, move it back over. So just keep that in mind, because it will literally move around the battlefield and stuff. But yeah, I don't think it's a very big ask. So yeah, just make sure it dies and get your buff and do your keys.
And to me, it's the best Mythic Plus buff you're going to get. Like, I don't think versatility, which is just static, more damage increase and less damage taken, plus a cooldown reduction, is ever really a bad thing. The cooldown reduction can like throw off some people's cooldowns so that some things are coming up sooner than they normally expect them to. So they're pushing their buttons sooner, and there's desyncing some of their cooldown rotations they might do. That stuff can happen. You just got to pay attention to it and be aware that it's a different week for that sort of stuff and how you handle it, and figure out when the best time is to do that stuff. There's some resources out there for you to find about your class and how to handle this week in particular. So I would certainly pay attention to what those folks are doing as far as using their cooldown. So most of the time it's like, it's off cooldown, hit it. If there's a particular cooldown it's usually used with, just wait for that other one to come up. It's still coming up faster. Like, you're still going to use it more often than you normally would in the dungeon. Sometimes where you're using it is, a little bit more important, but in general, in Mythic Plus, the starter rule I always give anyone who's just getting into Mythic Plus is push your buttons. Don't hold them. Just use them. You will do more overall damage throughout the entire dungeon and feel like you've contributed more if you just push your buttons more often than if you're trying to hold them for very particular points and use them in this strategic way, unless you have a route that's been planned out. Unless you're like going off a guide or something someone's told you, where they're like, here's the 8 places that you use your big cooldowns inside of this place. Don't use them outside of that. I would just push your buttons so that they're, use them more often, which I think is going to be the bigger help for you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, actually. It was a shift for a lot of us back in 2016 when Mythic Plus started, first came out, where it's like, oh, I use my cooldowns like on trash? Huh, okay. And of course, like the oldest school players, I still have problems mentally using my cooldowns, my defensives, because it's like, that used to be a half an hour cooldown, dude. Like, you better make sure that you meant to push that button. But I think that is really strong advice, is like, you need to just use your buttons for the most part, like as much as you can, until if you get to a point where you can make these really specific decisions about how to optimize them, that's great. But you'll probably do a lot better for yourself by just using them on cooldown and, killing stuff in the dungeon. I think especially up through, I really don't think 12s are that hard this season. Obviously, like, I have a lot of experience with the system and I have a tight group of people to play with, but compared to like last season, for example, 11s felt like a very large ramp above 10s, and then 12s were even a bigger ramp. Like, I never even did any 12s at all in season 1 in time. So, I think obviously the tuning and stuff, these ramps exist for you to get into 12s, and the way that you do that is by killing stuff as fast and safe as you can. So
yeah, and you'll start to notice the points if you run the same dungeon a few times. Oh, I hit this on cooldown, the past 3 times I've run this, or 2 times I've not run this, and everything's always dead with 15 seconds left on this particular pull. So maybe I should just wait 20 seconds and use this on the next pull, because maybe everyone's using their cooldowns on that pull, so stuff just dies so fast that you aren't like really getting a huge amount of value out of what you're doing. You'll start to notice those moments, and those moments are the moments that teach the really professional players where they choose to use those cooldowns. That's what everyone does. Everyone experiences that and goes through that. No one goes into a dungeon without ever being in it before and is like, here is my entire plan based off of nothing anyone else has showed me. I have just figured out what this is. Like, no, that's not, that's not how they do it. It's trial and error. And people figure out, oh, I need to shift this a little bit more. And if you're running with the same people, like, I remember doing a few dungeons with the group we have now where I would literally just call out. I'm like, okay, I'm using my cooldowns on this pull, so it's up for that pull. If you guys want to use them on that other pull, just feel free. And they would. And you'd watch this like, okay, you're watching DPS meters, and it's like, I'm way down here at the bottom for the ones where I'm not using cooldowns, and I'm way up here at the top for the ones that I am. And we just keep trading places as to who's doing that. And you just get clear through trash faster. And that only happens through that communication and organization. But if you don't have that, then yeah, just press your buttons and just, figure out what's going to work for you. But press them more often and you're going to feel like you contributed more and did better overall for the dungeon. That little damage meter that apparently the majority of the player base has turned on is going to show you in a much better position at the very end of the dungeon for the overall damage totals if you just press your buttons more often, for sure. Okay, Greedy Emissary and Collector's Bounty is live until the end of the month. So we have till July 29th for the Greedy Emissary and Collector's Bounty buff to be running. And this is goblins spawning throughout the lands, Dornegal, Stormwind, Orgrimmar, Undercity. You can... Not Undercity. What am I thinking? Undermine. That's the one I was thinking of. Oh my goodness. I'm glad I caught that.
The other city that's
the other
under.
one. The other under one. So if you're someone who's wanting to knock out some of these goblins, be sure you're doing that. There's all sorts of rewards and toys and treasures and stuff you can get from that, including shards you can go and spend at a vendor to buy yourself some tier 2 recolors that are out there. And then the Collector's Bounty buff is just a large increase to expansions before Dragonflight and their drop rates of critical items. And so by critical items, I mean like very specific mounts, very specific pets, as well as some particular items like legendary drop items. So like, your bindings drop to try and get your, Blessed Blade of the Wind Fury is something that has an increased drop rate. You have a higher chance to get Warglaze of Azeroth. You have like some of these really critical things that people have been farming for a long time. There's a large increase to their drop chance. So if you haven't gone through and started farming all of the old content again for mounts and transmogs and stuff, this is the month to do it. You will be very happy going through this month and gathering up all of the different rewards because it's a much higher chance for those things to drop. So just keep that in mind for this event.
Yeah, and also just the sheer volume of loot that the bosses drop. If you're not a mount farmer, but you like Mog, man, you can just get a mountain of new appearances from going and doing these legacy raids because the bosses drop so many extra items as a result of this too. So that's sort of more on my list, I think, than anything. Is like, I mean, Warrior, I'm pretty well caught up on. I think I have at least one set from every tier that's included here, but. Who knows? There's other classes I'm missing a ton of, and there might be Warrior stuff that I go, actually, I would really like to finish that set, so let me go do this. We got a couple weeks on it still. Like I said, I'm not in there with a spreadsheet and doing my, maxing out my daily lockouts or whatever. But, there's a lot of stuff to collect in this game, as it turns out, after 20 some years. Yeah. So, and most of it applies to this buff. So I think it's really cool. This is something maybe not Greedy Emissary, because I think you got to have unique rewards tied to that when it comes around. You want to have a reason for people to do it specifically, but sure. Collector's Bounty feels like something that could be like it could be twice a year, quarterly. Yeah. I really maybe you run it more frequently but for less long, but just give people, like, especially in a .7, seems like perfect timing. When stuff is kind of wound down, people want to play some WoW, give them some other goals to chase, like. And I feel like also we'll see how it plays out, but I feel like the collection aspect is really going to be important with housing. So, that could be Collector's Bounty could become more of tied into like the housing system, down the road, the way I'm kind of thinking about it. So, yeah, I think this has been a huge success so far. I would love to see it not be like a one-time thing or even a once-a-year thing. Like make it like a .7 tradition. Turn it on for a couple weeks at the end of every patch cycle.
I would see every 9 or every 11 weeks or something is what I would see them doing it, where they do 1 week every 9, or like make it one of the weekly things that can happen, and make the quest to complete the weekly event, like, run an old raid or run an old dungeon or something, like something super easy.
Oh, that would be really
that
cool.
You do,
yeah.
Right? And then you get a Collector's Bounty bag, and the Collector's Bounty bag has something from old content, which would be really neat, right? And it could be, I don't know, it could be one of those legendary starters. It could be a mount, it could be a toy, it could be a pet, like something from that older content would be kind of a neat thing to get. So I think that could be a really fun thing that they do. So who knows? Maybe someday we'll see what they do. All right, Darkmoon
I will say, like, it's an experiment, but I think it's early on, but it's safe to say this has been a pretty successful experiment. Oh, yes. It seems like people are really excited about this, and there's no real downside, like it doesn't affect your current progression or power. And, even if you really luck out, there's still probably more stuff to collect in this game for most players. So I think it's a huge win.
Well, and they aren't turning it on for Dragonflight. So people who still have stuff from Dragonflight they want to collect, they got to wait until that's, drops into the pool. If they keep doing that, there's always going to be stuff to collect. So that's just something to keep in mind too. All right. Darkmoon Fair is currently on. It runs until the 12th. This means that you can go out there to get your knowledge points for your professions, as well as some free skill ups for some of them. And so just be sure that you're getting out there and getting that done at least. There's also the increased reputation and experience gain buff that you can pick up. So that's something else to do by riding the carousel or the griffin. And then if you want to just have some fun and do some achievements, they got plenty of stuff down in there for you to do. They also have the Darkmoon Fair tokens to get your dirigible. They got the races. They got all sorts of stuff. A little dance competition. You can do all those things down at the Darkmoon Fair, so be sure that you are participating in that, including farming up the Darkmoon fish or the salmon or whatever they are. You can collect those up. Those not only can be used to help people get even more reputation gains, but they're also just a great food for Mythic Plus for healers. If you're someone who's doing a lot of M Plus and you don't have a mage in your group, just keep that in mind. So Darkmoon Fair is a good one to not miss out on, that's for sure. All right. When it comes to Luminous Luminaries, that is kicking off on the 13th. That is Sunday, July 13th. And this is GG Engineering has discovered luminous creatures in the depths of Vashir. They need your help again to research these creatures before they disappear into the deep ocean once again. Head to the submarine in the abyssal depths. Interact with fish to lure them back to the submarine. So if you're someone who wants to participate in Luminous Luminaries, you can absolutely do that by heading out to Vashir and checking it out. This is I just dislike Vashir, so I just won't be doing. I still just I'm just not my thing. But if you're someone who wants to, feel free. These are cool creatures, they're unique creatures to the event, so it's certainly cool to go and check that out. And there's some things there that you'd get to see and participate in, but there's nothing like permanent reward. This is very micro holiday. It's just a fun little silly thing for you to do and a reason to go to Vashir. So keep that in mind out there.
I think I did this one time a couple years ago, not even the first year. Maybe I did it the first year. I don't know. It's fine. Yeah, if Vashir is cool to you, then this must be an awesome holiday. I have never quested all the way through Vashir ever in the 15 years it's existed. Just really not my place. I mean, back in Cataclysm you could pick this or Mount Hyjal to start with, right? And I was like, there's no way I'm not going to Mount Hyjal. Yeah. And then I would kind of do some Vashir and go,
I did the Lore Master thing, man. I had to do it. It was part of the Lore Master. I had to.
You have no choice.
Yep.
But I mean, some people really like it. It's just definitely not my thing. But the event's kind of fun for what it is. If you're but it's sort of like even though it's only a day, it's sort of like WoW's Shark Week. I guess if you want to think about it like that. But it's one day. So that's going on. If like you said, total micro holiday. Just you're not walking away with anything permanent or anything. But if you want to just go do something silly, that'll be up next Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something we don't want to miss out on mentioning. It doesn't happen this next week. It doesn't kick off until the following Tuesday. So we're going to talk about it again next weekend. But we do have the Winds of Mysterious Fortune coming back. So this is a big deal for folks. This is a great leveling help. The last Mysterious Fortune buff we got was 20% experience buff for levels 10 to 80, 200% increased Dragonflight reputation buff, and 100% increased War Within reputation buff is what we were seeing. So we are now obviously farther along into War Within. So I don't know what the actual buff is going to look like this go around, Jason. I don't know if they've announced this yet. I don't think they have. But
I don't believe so. No, but
we get to see it might be 20%, again, increase for people leveling up. It might be 200% to War Within reputations for all we know, and 100% to Undermine ones. We don't know. It depends on what they're going to choose to do, but that could be what we're looking at. It also made it so that you get additional mysterious satchels that can contain equipment and cosmetics and combating experience potions and all sorts of fun little things like that. So there's it's a whole event that's going to be kicking off. It's going to be going from the 15th of July until the 12th of August. So you have almost a month of time there to take advantage of the Winds of Mysterious Fortune, but it is a great leveling buff for folks out there and a great way to gather a bunch of cosmetics and sort of fun things for folks that are doing content out there.
Yeah, the potions are really great. The XP potions you get are an extra 10 percentage points to your XP buff, and they're also warbound, and they don't expire when the event expires. So you can stock up on those just from doing stuff. You get the satchels like constantly as you're doing quests and doing whatever you're doing. And some of the potions have pretty decently potent combat effects that help you just get through even faster. Obviously, if you have the Warband Mentor buff, this all stacks together. So you could level a character from 70 to 80 if you have full Mentor in like a few hours, tops. Really good event to keep an eye on. I wanted to make sure that we mentioned it this week because I feel like, maybe I'll level some tunes. That might not be the best use of your time this week. So just to kind of paint the big picture here, the week after this coming reset is going to be sort of a leveling bonanza. So you might, if you want to spend your time more on your collection or whatever is going on this week, and then, work on leveling the following week, that's kind of, I think that's how I'm looking at it. I'm actually working on my shaman a little bit. I want to get my shaman leveled up during this event, and maybe then I'll move on to something else. I mean, it's almost an entire month. So Winds of Mysterious Fortune is awesome. Also another good like .7 activity in my opinion. So really, really cool stuff coming up. Like, even though there's no new content for, this whole window, like in terms of end game or really a lot of character power outside of the belt, like there's just so much stuff to do and different ways to approach your playtime. And I think that's a really cool way to go. It's low stakes, right? It's like collection or it's like leveling or whatever, but it just maybe gives you that, that motivation, like, hey, I want to hop in game and do this. Like, this is really what I want to focus on. And, I think that's great to do, especially with the timing right here, the end of the season, summertime. I think it just lines up really great.
Yeah. All right. Ghost of Koresh development notes. We had some updates here to a few things, but something that we wanted to highlight were some class updates for druids and warriors. In druids, they say they're adjusting some of the outliers in Liberation of Undermine tier bonuses and providing some compensation where relevant to ensure a smooth transition into the Mana Forge Omega tier bonuses. Will continue to monitor impact. So this is what we're seeing for druids. Hero talent, Druid of the Claw. The empowered shapeshift causes bear form to reduce magical damage taken by 6%, up from 4%. And the Mana Forge Omega 4-set bonus, handling of blood talons and coiled to spring bonuses have been updated if those bonuses are active at the time that Ravage triggers with the 4-set bonus. The automatic Ravage will also benefit from these bonuses. So automatic Ravage casts by the 4-set bonus will no longer consume stacks of Blood Talons or Coiled Spring. It is the intention of this 4-set bonus that these automatic Ravages do not benefit from Saber Jaws. We do not want that talent to feel necessary to maximize the effects of this bonus, so they're obviously just changing around how the 4-set bonus works so you don't feel like that's a necessary thing. That is the initial notes that they got in going into the Druid of the Claw talent. They then talk a little bit more about Feral and Guardian. I'm going to focus on the Wild Stalker changes and the Restoration Druid changes, because Wild Stalker is actually looking like it might be what we end up playing a lot more of in this next patch for Resto Druids. So Symbolic Blooms and Bursting Growth Healing was increased by 30%, although it's only now actually a nerf because it was initially 50%. So they actually tabled that off a bit, which might be a result to everyone going Wildstalker is what we're going to play. So who knows? Maybe that has shifted the meta a little bit. We'll find out. But they did change the 2-set bonus where the rate at which Symbiotic Blooms grow has been increased by 30% as opposed to 40%. So it's a 10% nerf to that, as well as the Symbiotic Blooms have a 20% chance to trigger a bursting growth every 2 seconds at 80% effectiveness, down from 100%. So there's nerfing the Resto Druids overall. I think a lot of that did come from basically people going, look, Wildstalker is just broken at the moment. There were people doing testing for Mythic Plus dungeons, people doing testing for Raid, and we're spreading these Symbiotic Blooms across the Raid, and they were just cranking healing. And so they, I guess, decided to back that off. So we'll see what happens with Resto Druids going forward, but those are some pretty substantial nerfs to the set bonuses and substantial nerfs to symbiotic blooms, which is the, key factor of Wildstalker, which might mean that we just don't see Wildstalker played as much as it was going to be played, which is unfortunate. So see what they choose to do. I know they did some protection stuff here for you as well, Jason.
Yeah, a little bit. One change is to Colossus. Demolishes the active ability with Colossus, which is your big hit. You're kind of building up stacks to like unleash this huge damage hit that also splashes some AoE. They're changing it so the channel doesn't break if your primary target moves over 50 yards away, which is really nice. You still won't hit your target because it doesn't have a 50-yard range. You have to be in melee range to hit, your target, but at least it won't break the channel, so you'll at least get that AoE attack. You already pushed the button, right? So there's no getting your stacks back. There's no do-over, but at least you don't totally waste everything because your channel breaks and there's other stuff in melee range of you. So that's kind of a nice quality of life. I don't really love Colossus. I much prefer Mountain Thane. It's looking more and more like I'm going to have to play Colossus in Season 3. I've been playing Colossus for Raid in Season 2 and Thane for Dungeon. But Colossus synergizes a lot better with the bleeds, and it seems like we talked a couple weeks ago about sort of the rework that Prot's getting in 11.2. And they're taking away some of our more, proactive tools in terms of like spell block and stuff was a controversial one that's going away. They're shifting a bunch of power into converting your active bleeds into healing. And I think Colossus synergizes with that better. And it may be hard to justify taking Thane depending on how the balance comes out. So we'll see, but like just looking at it at a very high level, that's what I'm kind of seeing right now. They did update the tooltip on one of the new Prot talents that's coming in, Spellbreaker, and it just to clarify it reads you have a 4% chance to disrupt magic damage dealt to you, reducing the damage it deals by 100%. This is like a super cool talent design, and it's a really powerful effect, but man, a 4% chance to disrupt magic damage is not a very high chance. Obviously it's a super powerful effect, but I'd rather just have like a flat 4% magic damage reduction or something, right? Like, it's such a low chance for something to happen versus spell block where you're going to use it for this encounter because these mobs or this boss does magic damage at this point, and then you're going to block the magic damage, but it's going to hurt, but it's not going to hurt anywhere near as much as it did. I mean, you compare it to like the Druid of the Claw changes. Guardian gets a buff that in this patch they're moving empowered shapeshifting causes bear form to reduce magic damage taken up to 6%, up from 4%. I would much rather have a small but flat and consistent magic damage reduction somewhere. If I can't have an activatable one that I can control where I get like a whole bunch of magic damage absorption or resistance or whatever you want to call it, this seems like rolling the dice on something that will never happen when you need it to. So I'm not entirely sure about this talent. Like, is this worth a talent show? It's a cool design, but like, it's especially weird for Warrior because Warrior's not the gambler tank. Right? Like you're not hoping for blessed RNG for a good outcome. You are maintaining shield block and ignore pain, and you're smoothing your damage curve from A to Z, right? Like throughout the whole combat, that's kind of your goal. That's what the class does. So this is like really spiky mitigation. This is the spikiest mitigation imaginable. Very low chance for a super powerful mitigation. Weird stuff. I sort of like something about it conceptually, but it's going to be so hard to quantify, like whether or not this is ever good. I feel like, right? Like, I don't know. I think probably based on the way the trees are shaking out, like I'll probably end up just messing with this to see how it feels, and if it feels like I'm getting benefit from it. But I don't know. I guess they wanted to freshen stuff up because they felt like Warriors had been, especially like Prot, had been locked into just a couple different builds for too long. I was not complaining.
I mean,
I like it when they mix up the play style, but I don't really feel like Prot needed this kind of overhaul.
That's where it gets a little interesting for me, right? Because I feel like, I mean, Resto Druid has certainly had a presence inside Mythic Plus, but Discipline Priest has been the king of Mythic Plus. Discipline Priest, untouched since the last time they did any updates. Holy Paladin buffed. Mistweaver untouched. Resto Druid nerfed. And you're like, okay, I feel like Resto Druid was stepping on the heels of Discipline Priest, and people went, nope, not having it. Nope, Discipline Priest must be king. We cannot have Discipline Priest not be king. It probably still was. And so, now we get the Resto Druid nerfs. That's kind of what this feels like to me. We also saw Preservation Evoker nerfs. That's another thing that they went in there and did. So, like, they are bringing some healers back down, and they're bringing Holy Paladin up, which I think is needed in some cases for sure. But I find it weird that they just continue, as you sort of mentioned with Warrior kind of been very present of late. I think it's weird they just continue to just leave Discipline Priest as like the king of Mythic Plus. Like, it's been the king of Mythic Plus for a long time. The last time I remember Resto Druid being really crazy, the big choice was back in BFA, was when like you had like people really doing Resto Druid on a regular basis, very high keys. It was the choice. You'd see it in Mythic invitationals that they were doing. Like that was happening much more frequently. Discipline is like, okay, the last time they went in here and did stuff to Discipline, they just buffed them. Like, Luminous Barrier increased by 100%. They made Holy Nova cost 87% less. They increased they made Power Shield cost a little bit more mana, but then they reduced the cost of some other things. And then they increased Ultimate Penance damage and healing. And Surge of Light mana cost was half. Like, it's very weird that they chose to go in and do these things, but they did. So Discipline Priest, I think, is still just going to remain at the top of Mythic Plus until Blizzard decides that they don't want Discipline Priest to be the only thing they see in all of these invitationals. Until then, it is what it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's still in flux too. Anything could still change.
Yep.
We're still far enough out that the stuff isn't locked in terms of the final balance. And then obviously nothing is ever really final in WoW. But yeah, like you kind of, all we can do as players is like we look at what they tell us and we look at what they change. We look at what's in the notes, and that kind of tells you what the priority is, I guess. So that's just kind of how I'm looking at it. But
sure.
Yeah, I'm not like super looking forward to having my play style mixed up so much at the very end here of this season, or this expansion, I should say. I like it when like a new set bonus comes in, or like there's a new thing to consider in your rotation, or some new proc or whatever. I don't hate having my play style shaken up, but I feel like it's weird to do it this late. Like I think the .1 was probably the window for like big shakeups for this expansion, but I'm not concerned that I'm not going to be able to play, or it's not going to feel viable or strong or whatever. I'll figure out whatever to do, and I'm sure that I'll like it. But I don't look at the notes we've seen so far and go, oh man, I can't wait till this comes out. This is really exciting to me. It's just not. So it is what it is.
Yeah. All right, dungeon testing, speaking of which, is going to be kicking off on July 2nd to the 8th, so it's been going on for a few days now. This is testing out Arakara, Dawnbreaker, Priory of the Sacred Flame, Operation Floodgate, for people who want to get in there and check those things out. They've also done some tuning and adjustments to those places, including updating visuals on those places, because in some cases, some of these were not fully updated when it came to them doing that big visual pass that they did. So we saw that particularly in City of Echoes as one of the places they did that. When it comes to Catal the Harvester, they've now reduced the amount of poisons that he casts out on people to 3 players, down from 5. The initial poisons, like the initial damage from the poisons, has been reduced by 50%, and it now deals that damage over 5 seconds as opposed to, quite quickly. The cosmetic singularity initial damage was also reduced by 50%, and the duration of the fade has been increased to 20 seconds. So keep that in mind. They are tuning some of these bosses in a big way to make them a bit easier to handle for players. I never thought putting poisons on 5 targets was a wise thing to do, because there's so few classes that can handle and deal with poisons, and you're either sort of, pigeonholing down into, hey, bring in a monk or a shaman who can cleanse all of these things very quickly and sort of assist your group in that way. Or you're, essentially just saying, here's a big mechanic, try and deal with this huge amount of damage that your group's going to be taking. Have fun. And it's not counterplayable in a very big way. So I'm glad to see this, because chances are you're going to have at least 2 people in your group who can deal with poisons. Chances.
Yeah. Right. And also, it's just so much less disruptive overall, because you don't have to have 5 players positioning the dance around where the waves are going to come out. And also the waves are going to one-shot people way less. You're going to have to get up pretty high probably for the waves to start one-shotting you, which, like, yes, you can avoid the waves and you're supposed to avoid them, but it's inevitable that sometimes somebody's going to get hit. So I think making that less of an immediate death sentence is a great change. Also, I mean, does this mean that Cosmic Singularity maybe is not super lethal all the time? I don't know. I think these are really good changes. I don't think Arakara was like a bad dungeon necessarily, but this last boss was a timer killer. It was extremely frustrating sometimes. Sometimes your group just couldn't find the rhythm, and you would wipe on this boss a lot. It's a dungeon people are going to want to do, presumably, because they're going to want the Sack Brood trinket. So you're going to be in there. And I think dropping this boss down a bit, this should help immensely. So I'm really glad to see this. If they brought this back with no changes to this boss, I'd be like, dude, what are we doing? Like, I know this. I think this was one of the ones that won the vote, wasn't it? Like, what? Why must we do this boss the same way yet again? But now it's like, oh, I want to check this out. This should actually be not that bad. Like, we can manage this consistently now. I think it looks. This is the exact part of the dungeon needed to change, and I think these are pretty good changes to it, at least to start. I mean, if it's still not where they want it to be, they'll probably change it more, because that's kind of the way they've gone with the dungeons. You have the infinitely scaling difficulty of the Keystone system, so that's always there as well. I think you could maybe even still move this from down to 2 players for the poisons or something, but we'll see how 3 feels and go from there. But I guess I would say this is a relief to me, right? When I saw that this was going to be back, my mind immediately went to this, and like, well, I don't know if I'd be playing with anybody who'd be running shaman, like resto shaman or any kind of shaman with poison cleanse was kind of just bog standard for season 1, right? Especially for this dungeon. So yeah, it should open it up quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing further changes that they're going to be going through with a lot of this Mythic Plus stuff. So hopefully that all gets handled well, and we see less punishing / unfun versions of some of these dungeons that were not high on my list to go back and revisit again. I'd even seen things like they're looking at Floodgate and nerfing the time before Big Mama casts the kilo block barrier, and they're doing stuff with the initial damage of Electro Crush to make that easier to handle. Like, even Bubbles' location has been adjusted, which makes me really curious. They noticed that everyone's trying to skip Bubbles all the time. Maybe they made that easier to do on a more consistent basis.
So what they have done with Bubbles is he now spawns where Swamp Face is.
Oh.
And Swamp Face activates and kills Bubbles.
This Bubbles just gone. It's just not a factor. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So I think that'll be nice. I never did a route where I skipped Bubbles. I just made my healer cry, which is fine to me. But that'll open up some new routing. I think also, like, Big Mama was sneaky difficult. Like, Big Mama is kind of a hard boss, actually, even though it's like the first boss of the dungeon. I think tuning that down a bit is really nice. We're seeing some other just tuning across these dungeons that should. I think the idea is to take the burden off that, like, initial, like, tank buster or that like mega spiky damage, and just give players more time to react to it, right? Like, we're going to roll stuff into periodic damage after the initial hit, or we're just going to, like, reduce the initial nuke of some dangerous ability. And I think those are good changes. I mean, honestly, from a design standpoint, I feel like you want season 3 to be the most approachable. right? Because you want to reward players who've invested in the entire expansion. You want to be attractive to players that are coming to check out what maybe they've missed or get ready for the next expansion or whatever. So, I think you want to take that spikiness and just level it off a bit and have these cleaner entry points for people to start moving up the system and everything like that. So having these timer killers and these this really punishing upfront damage, nerfing that or adjusting it, that sounds great to me. Like I'm looking forward to all of these changes that are coming to these dungeons that we know from seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah. Okay, man, with that, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'd like to give a shout out to Arajian, Bradley, Chris, James, Kapawi, Max, and Shorel. Thank you so much for everything that you give, as well as all of our patrons, past and present. If you've ever helped the show out, we appreciate you very much. It means a lot to us. We have no new patrons this week, but those who are looking to hop in and support the show and, keep the episodes and archives online, that you can be found over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. We recommend signing up through a browser because your phone will try and take extra money from you. Don't trust your phone companies. They're evil app creators. So just keep that in mind. So yeah, we definitely recommend the web browser sign up. So if that's something you're looking to do, and yeah, patreon.com/thestartingzone. Thank you so much, patrons. We appreciate every bit that you help us out.
Absolutely, patrons. Thank you so much, past and present, for keeping the show on track, keeping the archives online, keeping stuff where people can find it, just making sure that episodes come out on a weekly basis. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Another way to support the show is go to your iTunes, drop a podcast, leave those 5-star reviews. They really help us out. And we love reading reviews from our listeners when we can find them. So feel free. We appreciate it. It raises us up those charts, helps more people find the show. And that's going to wrap up episode 691 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. I do, before we move into the last part here and announce our email address, because that's going to be used, we have a giveaway that we're doing at the moment. For those of you who are still listening and have not checked out yet, if you are still listening to this, then you can write us an email at thestartingzone@gmail.com, which is the best way to contact the show. And you can basically have like Shaw giveaway or giveaway Shaw or something like that inside of the title of that email. And I'll repeat that again at the end of this. But we're giving away a Shaw infused epic pack. This is provided to us by Blizzard. So thank you to the Blizzard team for allowing us to give this away. The epic pack is like quite the bundled pack. And we've got a lot of entries so far, which has been really exciting. That people are A, listening this far into the episode, because this is where we advertised it last week, and B, that they're on board and they want to get one of these things because it's very neat. So it's a standard $80 US pack is what this is. And I want to highlight, because we wanted to be sure we covered this last week and this week as well, this is a NA/Oceanic only code that they gave us. They didn't give us an EU code. It's not an EU code. I apologize to our EU listeners. We appreciate you too very much, but it's just one of those things where like this, it just happens to be an NA code. You might be an EU player who plays on NA. I don't know. If you are, then if you have an NA account, you can use this code. You just need to have an NA account. That's the issue here. And anyways, the pack includes the Shaw Warped Cloud Serpent Skywriting mount for both classic and modern. The Shaw Warped Riding Tiger ground mount for both classic and modern. The one is for classics, there's Shaw Touched, but they're still those mounts. They're very cool looking. You get the Merriment Pet for modern. You get the Joyous Pet for classic. You get the Shaw Warped Tea Set for modern, and you get the Shaw Touch Tea Set for classic. You get the Storm Stouts Shaw Warped Collection Transmog for modern as well as for classic. And here's the kicker, right? So you get all that stuff. You also get a level 85 character boost and 30 days of game time. Now, a character boost on Classic to level 85 is $65 US, which is wild in my opinion. But that's part of this pack. So if you spend essentially $15 more, we're only spending $80 US, you'd get all those mounts and pets. And we know how much the shop mounts and pets cost because people talk about them all the time. And you'd get a game time, 30 days of game time, which we know how much that costs inside all your different regions that you normally spend. Plus, you get that, that boost, which I think is pretty awesome. So this is a very nice value. And overall, it's something that we're happy to be able to give away to listeners to the show. So we wanted to throw it here at the end of the show for folks to be able to do that. What we want is you to write an email to us with, Shaw Touch giveaway or Shaw giveaway or Shaw Infused giveaway, whatever you want to do it. Giveaway Shaw. I don't know. We've gotten a bunch of different titles in, but they're all easy to track. And we want to know which zone you are most looking forward to re-exploring through this classic stuff. Which zone inside of Mists of Pandaria are you like pumped up to see again, go through again, revisit questing, revisit old friends and old reputations and that sort of stuff to sort of go through. So let us know in that email, which zone you're most hyped about, and we'll be doing the giveaway coming up here next. Well, actually, I'm probably going to run it to the 20th. So we'll do one more episode where I advertise it, and then we're going to do the giveaway is what's going to end up happening probably before we do the next episode. So just keep that in mind. We'll do one more episode, then we'll do the actual giveaway and get the code out there. So it's all out there before this launches and goes live, so that you have this boost for when all of this happens. So just keep that in mind, and you can dive in and enjoy some of this Mist stuff. So yeah, thank you for entering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mist Classic comes out, of course, July 21st. So we got a couple weeks to run this. We kind of want to run it up until release. So let's give people a chance to get some entries in. It's been great hearing from everybody and all their memories of Mist, or people looking forward to making memories in Mist who didn't get a chance to play it when it was live, which I think is going to be a really cool experience for people to have, because Mist is a great expansion, one of my favorites for sure. And yeah, this this cosmetic pack and the other services it includes is awesome. Like these mounts look great. The MOG went live this week. The MOG had been pre-purchased, but since the pre-patch is live now, you can use the MOG in either version of the game, modern or classic, and that's a really cool look too. So yeah, the stuff is super fun, and it's been like I said, it's been great to hear from everybody about Mists, and also. We kind of are doing an experiment here with not doing the giveaway through socials, and it's been really encouraging to see everybody's enthusiasm and all the entries we got just through email from talking about it on the show. We want to make sure that the giveaway goes to a listener and not somebody who's just skimming a hashtag on Twitter or what have you. That's just not how our show is. Not Twitter content. Our show is this. So that's how we want to run it, and we want to make sure that somebody who listens is the lucky winner. And it is really cool, and it's cool to see all the enthusiasm for Mist. It is fun to have it coming back. I'm not really a classic player, but like I said, I did play some pre-patch this week, and I'll probably dive in once it comes out officially. I'll probably boost up my warrior, and I don't know if I'm going to actually level to 90 and try to play endgame, but I might take it for a spin because it was one of the best expansions, really. So. It's cool that it gets another round coming up here. Yeah.
Okay, with that, if you'd like to contact the show, leave us your email. Like I said, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter. You can't do any of the giveaway stuff on the other socials, just the email for giveaway. But you can also, if you had questions about the show, things like that, you can reach out to us on Twitter or Blue Sky at The Starting Zone, or you can join our Discord server by going to thestartingzone.com/Discord. And you can also get your hands on some TSC gear. We got some swag going on over at startingzone.dashery.com. Dashery is DASHERY.com. And you can buy some shirts and things like that if that's something you're interested in. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
You can find me on socials. You can find me on Twitter at Shieldwald and at Blue Sky at jlucas.bsky.social. You can also find video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. They've been quiet, but you never know. I'm probably not going to be getting back into regular raid streaming anytime soon, at least not until season 3. But at some point I'll pop in there with something. We'll hang out and play some games. So check out those channels as well.
Yeah. If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, over on Blue Sky at SpencerHD, or over on Twitch and YouTube at twitch.tv/SpencerHD or youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for myself and Jason, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.